Hey guys, thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate that. Um, let's pray. Father, I thank you for what you've done, and I thank you for what you're about to do. Speak to me, speak through me, in the name of Jesus. Amen. And in this sermon, specifically, God, let me be a voice for the voiceless. Let me be let me be um, kind of uh, conduit not only of what you have to say, but what people are thinking in other churches. Let me be a voice for that. People that have may have seemed unseen and overlooked. Um, Let me be their voices when I talk about Inreach. Thanks, God. Amen. Hi, guys. Um, my last video, I talked about the journey of excellence. When it came to a company or a church or whatever. Um, and the Lord kind of has me in the same vein. I don't know why He does have me in the same vein, because I've never ran a church before. I've never led anything before. I've never, done anything before. So I kind of feel inadequate, but to give advice or feedback or anything like that, because I've never done it before. And he said, yes, you've never done it before. That's true. But you've seen it. You've been on the receiving end of when it's done well and when it's done poorly. And I need you to speak not as a professional leadership who's done it for years, like John Maxwell or Pastor Craig Groeschel of Life Church, or even your Pastor Stephen Furtick. There are many of those people out there, but there are not so many people who have uh, been on the receiving end of both bad and good leadership. And even if they have been, uh, they've they don't have the knowledge to, or they don't know how to adequately convey like you do what to do to change it. He, oh, correction. Everybody has been under some kind of leadership. Either your boss at work or your pastor at church or your, you know, managers in your business that you run. But he said sometimes people don't know how to convey what they see. They have ideas, they have thoughts, they have feelings, but they either are too scared or they don't have the words. He said, I've gifted you with words and the ability to convey things that other people are thinking but can't say. That's what makes you an authority, not the fact that you've done it for 20 years and here's what you've learned after doing it for 20 years. Because sometimes people that have done it for a long time and have all these tips and tricks or whatever. They've been leaders, but they haven't experienced leadership to the level that you have. And he says, and that's what qualifies you to speak on this subject. And I was like, okay. So here I am again. But this time, I'm going to talk about Inreach. Inreach. Typically, in churches, we talk a lot about outreach, and outreach is important. Outreach can take many forms. Like, outreach can be feeding uh, the homeless through your local church, or handing out tracts, or tracts were little papers uh, to get people to come to Christ. We would do that. We'd stand at the corner and just hand out tracts, and uh, hopefully people would come to church. Um, and outreach can be inviting a friend to church, or sharing your church online, or outreach can take many different forms. It's where you reach out to your community. It's where the church becomes the hands and feet of Jesus and reach out to your community. And my church does amazing outreach. What we do, instead of like us like as a church uh, going out there and doing it um, uh, feeding the homeless ourselves, or trying to do all this ourselves, we have what's called partnership outreach, which means we partner with people in many different spheres, from feeding the homeless, from doing all this stuff. We partner with organizations who are already doing that stuff, and join them with money, or with volunteers, or with whatever, and then we give out that way. And it's the most amazing idea I've ever seen. I believe that Pastor Stephen was driving in his car, and the Lord told him at the beginning to do outreach that way, instead of us trying to do everything. Partner with organizations who are already doing what you want to help with, whether it be money or resources or volunteers, and join with them. And I believe our outreach arm is one of the biggest arms at our church, if I'm not mistaken. We partner with so many different organizations in so many different spheres. And outreach can also take the form of volunteering for a committee, which is also a big arm at our church. Online volunteering, and in-person volunteering at each location for a team or whatever. So most churches in some form have have a form of outreach down pat, whether it's a big church, small church. But today I want to talk about Inreach. what in okay, Inreach is when you outreach is reaching out to your community. Inreach is reaching in and serving the people that attend your church, that are in your company, are in your circle of friends. That's in reach. And I find most places that most companies or most churches that I've been through, been a part of, the outreach is strong, but the inreach is lacking. Like, I've been to churches where the outreach is wonderful, but if you actually huff it there and go there on a Sunday, it's like, um, how do I say this? It's like you go there on a Sunday and it's so easy to get lost. And it's so easy to get lost and struggle alone. One aspect of InReach that we do really well at my church too is e-groups. E-groups are an online a group where you can meet in person and online to discuss the sermon, to make friends, to do all that stuff. I was in an e-group myself for about a year or two, but it got too stressful because I was preaching, I was in an e-group, I had so so much stuff going on, and the Lord kind of released me to um, get get out of it at that time. But while I was in it, it was it was a great way to really dive deeper in the sermon and really reach in to the people that attended uh, Elevation regularly. And in my e-group, uh, people also attended in-person church because at the time it was 2020, and we got to know each other. We got to talk about the sermon and whatever. Um, it was a really good way to reach in, so people didn't feel alone. Um, but in other churches I've been to, especially in bigger churches, uh, people, if there's no form of in-reach, the churches get lost. Not the churches, the people get lost because you're coming, you're coming, and you're coming, and you're coming, and nobody knows who you are. And it's just really kind of depressing. Like, when you're going through something, you can ask for prayer and you do, but nobody checks up on you, and nobody really, um, really, uh, you feel, I should say, you feel that nobody cares about your life. And I'm sure people make friends at church, but typically the bigger the church gets, the more structures need to be in place for in reach, for people that actually hoof it. uh, actually go there every day to feel included. And I found, for me, this is typically a problem when you have a difference or a disability or a special need, because it's just like it's kind of hard because you don't want you don't want to stick out like a sore thumb, but you do. And you sometimes kind of feel that if you have a special kind of lifestyle that is not typical, or if you live a special kind of way that's like, how am I saying this? Um, that you're kind of not not really not really valued or cared about. Like I said in my sermon that I did was, um, I said in my sermon, perhaps uh, this is the video you perhaps have been waiting for. I said I've been to a church where I felt like a burden or a token, like with a disability. I didn't feel really uh, valued, and I think just at the time I was still dealing with a lot of church trauma, and I think that was maybe my perception. But I think when you have a person, especially with special needs, I think sometimes you don't know how to include them. You're afraid to ask. You're afraid to, be in their business. But I think if you have uh, questions, you just need to ask. You as leaders or pastors or people in companies need to, first of all, get to know the person, especially if they're if you see them coming and they're not, and it's a small kind of group, or for me, I was the only person there for several years, uh, until another young gentleman that I brought started going there. And all in that time, I invited uh, them to my home. I invited the door to be open, and nobody walked through the door. So, and I'm not saying to pounce on them or whatever, but I'm saying to build relationship with their caregivers if they're nonverbal. And if they're verbal, to build relationship with them. Because you'll gain a wealth of knowledge from them. I can't tell you how many people with disabilities I've talked to that have said to me, I went to church and I felt so terrible. Nobody talked to me. Everybody was in their cliques and like it was just terrible and I'm not going back again. And I thought, that's not how God, that's not how Jesus was. First of all, with people that have special needs or live differently than you, to get to know them, you need to build relationship with them. Don't be afraid if you see that person coming and coming and coming as leadership of that house or that company to say, hey, can we go out for coffee? I have questions. Or hey, can we meet together? Um, Usually that person will say, or their caregivers will say, sure, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's a saying that people always say, and it's so true. And you'll say, "Oh, uh, I'm," and sometimes people will say, "Oh, they're in leadership. They don't have the time to socialize with someone like me." I'm like, "Why not?" Okay, first of all, people don't have time. They make time. So if you as a pastor, a leader, um, a a company, a CEO of a company don't have time, well, make time. Find out about them, not only about their needs, not only about uh, their disability, but find out who they are as people. Find out what kind of music they like. Go out for lunch with them. Go out to their homes. And I'm telling you, no matter how busy you think your schedule is, you can make the time. People make time for things that are important to them. And this is an important thing because they have souls too. They have needs too. Not just needs for the disability, needs for love, needs for friendship, needs for all kinds of things. And and mostly people just walk by because they're afraid or not sure. But I'm telling you, if you will make the time, you'll be surprised on who you'll get to know, on what a wonderful person that person is, and different ways of communicating, or if they have caregivers, or if they if they live differently than you do. Like, let's say if they're uh, able-bodied but single, or you know they're in their 60s and you're in your 30s or 40s, you can learn a lot. The more people you let into your world is the more experiences you gain. And you don't have to, you you should not let everybody in close. But you can make new friends. And the more you get to know about people and how they live and their journeys and their stories, the richer your life becomes. And that's what I mean by Inreach. And I've seen companies where they have amazing outreach. I'm not talking about churches now. I'm talking about just regular companies. They have amazing outreach to their customers and other people, but they treat their employees like nothing. Or one part of the company gets everything, while another part of the company gets nothing. We need to, when we're leading, make sure that everyone in the company, everyone in the church, everyone in the organization feels valued, feels appreciated, feels like they're more than a workhorse. Because if people feel like a workhorse, they won't put forward their best effort. And if people feel valued and people feel loved, most people will go to the mood for you. And if people don't, uh, they'll come to work and do the bare minimum. There's an epidemic now in employment circles called quiet quitting, where people only do what is expected of them for their job. They don't go over and above. They don't even do a good job. And I would say the reason for quiet quitting most times is people don't feel valued. People don't feel heard. People don't feel listened to. And you want if you want to know how well your church is doing or how well your business is doing at something, don't ask your team. Ask the person who is the least um, in other people's eyes. They're not the least in God's eyes. Nobody's the least in God's eyes. But ask the person you wouldn't think that will know a lot. And they'll tell you how you're really doing and invite and don't shy away from the truth. If they have a story, if they and invite them to tell you the truth and make sure that you say this is a safe space. This is just between us in the room, but tell me your story and tell me the truth. How are we doing at this organization? How are we doing where your community is concerned? Like, for example, how are we doing for people with disabilities? How are we doing for seniors? How are we doing for young people? And invite them to tell you the truth, because it's easy to hear all the hypey stuff and, oh, our company does this and, oh, our company does that. But it's harder to hear, oh, we need to do work here or we need to do work here. So invite them to tell you their stories. Invite them to tell you their stories. Invite them to tell you um, the the truth as they see it, and they will. And some people are just complainers and all of that. But most people are just genuine people who want to be seen, loved, and respected. So ask them to tell you the truth. Ask them to tell you how they're doing, because the heads of your teams are great, but they'll only tell you what they see by numbers. If you want to know how a department is doing or whatever, ask the people that that department is called to serve, you know. So ask a person with a disability, how are we doing to serve you, and what can we do better? Or ask a senior, how is our church serving you? Or ask a young person, how can this company serve you better? Or ask a senior, or ask someone. I'm and I'm talking about more than a survey, because some people said no surveys. I know for me, sometimes I'm not a person who likes doing surveys. So sometimes I just give the shortest answers or whatever. But if you sit down with me, I will tell you something else. I will tell you the truth. So, uh, the lost art of conversation is what's missing. So, because we like to do it fast, so we like people to fill out a quick survey, a few minutes and they're done. But to really have an effective church, have effective Inreach, have an effective company or organization, you really need to get people's real impressions, real opinions, or whatever. Will every opinion be to your liking? No. Will every opinion be valid? No, because you might have people that are disgruntled and that hate everything. But at least it's an opinion. At least you're getting their thoughts and feelings. And it's very easy to look at numbers on a survey. It's much more difficult that to look into somebody's eyes and say and receive how they're feeling. But it's so much more effective. That's why conversation is important. That's why conversation is so vital to an organization, and not just a survey, not just uh, a glorified team building exercise. Actual conversation that says, how we do how we doing, even with your staff members that are so-called lower on the totem pole, like the assistants and all that stuff. I'm not talking about the heads, because the heads will tell you everything from the numbers. But remember, an organization and a church is much more than numbers. It's about, first with a church, it's about God, then it's about people. And then and then, but when you are dealing with people, you have to understand that everybody will have a different experience. Everybody had a different opinion. And welcome all experiences, welcome all opinions. They all won't be right, they all won't be correct, but at least that person will be heard. At least that person will be understood. Montel Williams had a saying. He said, "Speak without defending, listen, listen without offending." So, because a lot of people, when we speak, we have our answer right away. We we don't really ask to understand. We ask to start an argument. We ask because we want to, whatever. We want to uh, look like we care, but we really don't. But when you ask, be open and say, I really want to know your thoughts on this. I really want to know how you're feeling. I really want to know you. And be prepared for whatever they say. Whether it's, oh, it's great, or, oh, but that part is terrible, or that part needs some work, or whatever. Because remember, I said we are all on a journey, and that's true. Because whatever work your organization, your church, your company needs to do, that's all part of the journey. That's all part of the sauce of being human. And that's all part of life. You're not going to get it right every time. You're not going to get it perfect all the time. The only perfect being is Jesus. And he died and rose again and now is with the Father. So this is not an indictment for you to be perfect or whatever. This is for you to understand that we're all on a journey, and we're all just getting better day by day and doing the best that we know how with the help of the Lord. That's the end of this sermon. I wanted to clear up something. I gave such um a bad definition of excellence last time. I said it was holding yourself to a different standard, but different could be bad too. But um, so I'll correct it in this sermon. Excellence for me is holding yourself uh, to a different and higher standard, and being synergistic in your organization and making sure everything runs as it should. But saying that, excellence is also knowing that things won't run as they should all the time, and being prepared for that, and having plans that if they don't run as they should, this is what we do. So to me, excellence is holding yourself to a higher standard than is typical. Being synergistic, which is synergistic is basically in your company, in your church, working together to make things as um, as seamless as possible for your organization to run well. That's a better definition of excellence. Because I was singing it last night and I said, oh my gosh, I I gave such a bad definition of excellence. I'm so sorry about that. I was like, yeeks! It's all part of the game of being human, guys. I'll see you later. Bye. Hopefully this sermon helped. Bye. Sorry guys, I'm having a hard time turning my camera off today. Give me a few minutes. I'm really loving the new Elevation Worship song. Um, Jesus Be the Name. I love how that song came about. Many of you know that Elevation Worship has some of the greatest worship songs ever. And they're written by my pastor and Chris Brown and all of those people. And on Friday, they came out with a song called Jesus Be the Name. And that came out, that started, I believe, in church. Pastors started singing around the chorus, uh, and it came in church. And now it's a full song. It's absolutely amazing. Amazing. It's called Jesus Be the Name, and you can get it on the Elevation Worship channel. So, bye guys. See you later.